So, Jason, today we're going to be talking about ChatGPT because ChatGPT is in the news today because a very big publisher is suing them.
I'm surprised it took this long for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that ChatGPT is famously backed by Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that the New York Times sues Microsoft's ChatGPT maker OpenAI over copyright infringement.
Well, it sounds like a little mom and pop
A little, yeah, the
New
little
York
mom
newspaper
and pop
organization.
news. Yeah. So the thing is that they're accusing them of
Mm-hmm.
copyright infringement and abusing the newspaper's intellectual property. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's like the open secret, open like how the sausage is made. Like everybody knows that how these AI are trained, and they're trained on all this open data that's out there, and.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true. ChatGPT is looking at different data sources. But the thing is that the New York Times is currently accusing them of mass copyright infringement. The thing is that it's exploiting them in many cases and also using large portions of their works, which makes sense because
Yeah.
the thing is we know that using ChatGPT, you could ask it a question and it's pulling from multiple data sources. It would make sense that it would pull a data source such as the New York Times because it is such a large publication. And the thing is that they cover multiple topics of news. So this makes sense.
Yeah, and especially when it's yeah, there's more people clicking on it and it's out there for it to scoop up. But I do think that this data just being out there is a bit of a double-edged sword where like they want to be pushed out there and people are seeing it, and because people can see it and view it, so can the chatbots. They can all also suck up all that information.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I thought about this because we're able to view the New York Times articles, and the thing is, I believe after a certain point, they ask you to consider subscribing to their subscription. But I don't think that's the case with like the ChatGPT. Like they're just able to view the information and provide it readily to anyone asking the question. So why would you even go to the New York Times and subscribe there when you could just go to ChatGPT and they'll give the answer? The thing is, by the way, the whole reason I'm saying this is because they added that their journalistic material is being used for commercial gain without the permission of the original source, because they actually have writers and reporters going out there writing all of this stuff, and then ChatGPT is just taking it. Like it has to come from somewhere. There has to be an original source. And that's
Yeah.
what they're arguing. It's because they're potentially going to be making a lot of money off of all of this.
Not potentially, they already are.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I think that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to kind of pinpoint that it was specifically New York Times that it was taking from. Because, I mean, there's like how many different organizations like cover the news? It could be from any of these other sources. Like if you just look up like presidential stuff, like there's how many, like every single mom and pop, local, like state level, national level, like newspapers are all covering this thing. Everybody is.
Yes. I actually have something to say about this.
Oh, really?
But before that, what I want to say is, if you like this video so far, consider subscribing. It really helps out the channel. We put out videos daily. We have a library of over 200 videos, closing in on 300. And, subscribing is free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it only takes a second. So consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel. So I'm going to get to that in a second.
Oh, really? They know.
The thing is that the New York Times also said that these tools were built with and continue to use independent journalism and content that is only available because we and our peers reported, edited, and fact-check it at a high cost with considerable expertise. So, like I was mentioning, they're putting in a lot of resources to do these articles. And the thing is that if Microsoft and OpenAI want to use their works for commercial purposes, the law requires them to first obtain permission, which they have not. And by the way, there's a lot more that goes on to this because they also state that they respect the rights of content creators and owners and are committed to working with them to ensure they benefit from AI technology and the new revenue models. This all boils down to say that OpenAI is taking large parts of their content directly, not even editing it that much from the articles themselves. They're also going through and altering some of the information that the New York Times has written, which also is that sounds a little dangerous, altering information that has been posted. To me, that sounds like you're getting misinformation and it's providing misinformation. So it's kind of wild on what's happening right now with this, because at one point you're like, okay, I'm getting the answers from ChatGPT's getting it from the New York Times, but sometimes it's copying it directly and other times it's straight up giving you a mixed answer of two different data sources.
But I do think that if it's like picking from different sources, isn't that like the whole purpose? Like, is gathering a bunch of different information and putting it into like one answer versus like getting it from one place.
But the thing is, this goes back to this is where I want to tie it in. This goes back to the New York Times statement that says they go through considerable amounts of time and resources to fact check all of this. Why is ChatGPT altering that information? If the New York Times is saying, hey, we already went through and fact checked this ourselves, why are you altering our information? Yeah.
I mean, I think that all media puts a spin on everything.
Yeah, okay. I could agree with you on that one.
I'm just, it's not even a conspiracy. It's just, you can look kind of like, it's just the way that people word things as well. You can like kind of tell which way they're leaning, left or right, based on the way that they kind of like even just put in the title. So like, I think that them fact checking is like, I mean, maybe they got the right sources and stuff, but like in terms of like the spin that they potentially may or may not put on it, I think that also comes into play, because there's also websites that have a kind of like which way it's leaning gauge,
like a bias.
And it's like, oh, these websites are more biased this way versus this way, and it'll show you like which news sources are reporting on like one topic and then provide you the news, like, okay, this like the like red side news is talking like this, and then the blue side news is talking about the same issue but like this.
That's interesting, because I didn't think about that, but you're right. I think that maybe what ChatGPT is doing is erasing the biases that it has on there and providing a more clean cut answer and straight to the point.
Because if it's like pulling from all the different news services, it's pulling from like multiple different like Fox News, CNBC, CNN. If they put all those things together, like there's like some sort of like middle ground news that isn't like potentially biased. Yeah. But I mean, maybe ChatGPT is also biased. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. It'd be interesting to see what comes out of this. The other thing that they are mentioning is that because of this, they think that fewer people will click through the news sites, resulting in shrinking traffic and revenues, which makes sense. That's from the business aspect. That makes sense. Why would I want to subscribe to the New York Times if I'm getting it from ChatGPT itself? And the thing is, they're not sharing the revenue. So
I feel like this is like not really even controversial. This has happened before. Oh. When Google was like,
oh, you're right,
displaying
you're
the
right.
news as well. And they're like, oh, they're not even clicking on the video. Like I think it's just really newspapers wanting a cut of the revenue. If Google displays a little bit of the thing, then, they might not click on the actual article to get to our site for us to get the money.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. It is interesting when
I think it's just they see that like, oh, they're making too much money, and it's
and they're not getting a cut of the revenue, but they are using their work.
I mean,
which is
they're using everybody's work.
That is true. They're using
yours, mine,
it's
everybody.
It's going to be interesting what's going to be coming out of this, because I think it's like, it's one of the a big publisher that's taking them on right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. But
I do wonder
oh yeah,
if they're gonna reveal like the source code, because I know like that's the whole thing. Is like, how can they prove that it's directly pulling from them? Because if it's like, oh, it's aggregating it from a multitude of sources,
yeah,
that like a lot of times when you talk about AI, it's like a black box. You ask it a question and then it pops out an answer, and you don't exactly know how it's getting to that point, but it's just coming to that conclusion based on all these things it's learned.
yeah. And that's like what you mentioned before. I think it's like also different iterations of it are trained on different models. So
The SAD model.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It would be oh my god, it'll be interesting to see honestly what model is using. But I don't think they would ever release the data source on it, because it's like that's literally like why Microsoft is like backing them so much. It's because of that information that they have there. But yes, but the thing is, I would want to know from our audience what you guys think about this. Do you think that it is fair for ChatGPT to be using the New York Times articles and publications for their own use? It makes it does make it easier for the user, but at the same time, these businesses also run on they have to make money. They have to make money, and that's the point of all of this. It's like they're not going to be producing these articles and it's not going to be fed into ChatGPT. I think that they do need to share some of the profits if they are using, depending on how they're going to do it. I have no idea, but I do think that there needs to be some way for them to be able to get some of the revenue from this, because like the thing is, they're doing this to everyone. So I think that it's going to be hard for them to be able to see where the money is going to go. But at the same time, it's like you're using other people's content essentially on a massive scale.
Yeah, I do wonder how it's gonna play out, because in Canada, Google has signed a deal to pay newspapers to allow them to display their stuff.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So, I mean, is it going to be kind of like that model where the big corporation kind of like gives out like money from a certain fund to basically assist with the journalism? Or, is there going to be some other thing?
You did remind me there is one last point to this, because ChatGPT or OpenAI did sign with some publications in December, which were Axel Spring, the parent company of Business Insider, Politico, and European outlets such as Build and Well. So they're already doing that.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's probably the direction it's going to go.
Basically like partnerships.
Yeah, basically partnerships, like licensing to a degree. But yes, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.